She sent me a selfie with some guy. A fitness influencer I'd never met. Captioned leveling up. I didn't type a single word in response. Instead, I screenshots the post, forwarded it to her parents, and then sent it to the event coordinator at the Malibu estate we had booked for our wedding. My phone immediately turned into a vibrating brick of notifications as her entire family began calling. But I didn't care. I was too busy dismantling a future that had already been compromised. I'm 30, a lead architect in Santa Monica, and for the last 2 years, I thought I was building a life with Chloe. She was 27, working as a brand consultant for high-profile talent in the Hollywood Hills. We met at a gallery opening in Pla, and for 18 months, everything felt like a perfect blueprint. We were 6 months into our engagement, and the October wedding was locked in. Every detail, from the ocean view venue in Malibu to the custom catering, was finalized. I thought we were bulletproof. Looking back, the cracks were there, but I was too focused on the structural integrity of our future to notice the aesthetic obsession she prioritized over reality. The descent began about 6 weeks ago when Chloe started representing a new client, a celebrity trainer named Jax with a massive, curated digital footprint. Chloe began spending her nights in the Hollywood Hills, supposedly handling high-stakes marketing launches and content strategy sessions. Jax is intense about his brand. Julian, she'd tell me, her eyes glazed over from too much blue light. He's a visionary, and I need to be in the room to understand his narrative. I bought it. I played the supportive partner, assuming that in our city, hustle was just a synonym for a successful career. The shift became physical, then personal. She started hitting the boutique gyms in West Hollywood at odd hours, claiming she needed to experience the energy of his audience firsthand. Her wardrobe became aggressively trend-focused, shifting toward the kind of high fashion, revealing athletic wear that suited the aesthetic of Jax's social circles. When I questioned it, she deflected with talk about brand synergy and authentic content. She wasn't just working for him. She was becoming an extension of his brand, leaving me to sit alone in our apartment, waiting for a partner who was increasingly checked out. The Friday before the collapse, she told me she had to stay at Jax's compound for an overnight shoot. She claimed the logistics were too complex to drive back to Santa Monica, so she'd crash at a friend's place nearby. I didn't question her until Saturday morning when a check with her friend confirmed she had never showed up. That was the first time I realized I was living with a stranger. By that afternoon, the confirmation I didn't actually want arrived. An Instagram story of Chloe and Jax at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, her hand on his chest, the caption leveling up mocking the life we had spent months planning. She tagged me. She wanted an audience for the funeral of our relationship. Seeing that post wasn't just a shock. It was a clarifying moment. The gut-wrenching pang was there, but it was quickly superseded by a cold, sharp sense of purpose. I realized she hadn't just made a mistake. She had staged a public audition for a new life. My first instinct was to call her and beg for the truth, but I stopped myself. Demanding an explanation from someone who had already decided to broadcast my replacement would only be an exercise in humiliation. Instead, I transitioned into survival mode, treating the situation like a failing business project that needed immediate liquidation. I contacted my attorney, Marcus, an expert in high-stakes family law in Beverly Hills. I didn't want to get stuck with cancellation penalties for a wedding that, thanks to her, was now ethically null and void. Julian, that Instagram story is digital proof of a breach of intent, he told me over the phone. It's not just a photo. It's an admission of abandonment. Send it to the venue and the vendors. If they have any sense of optics, they won't want their brand associated with that level of public infidelity. The process of deconstructing our future was grueling but necessary. I reached out to her father, a man I genuinely respected. I didn't plead or explain. I simply sent him the evidence. I told him that while I had planned to spend the rest of my life with his daughter, that life no longer existed. Then, I tackled the vendors. I called the Malibu estate, the caterer, the photographer, and the florist. Every single call was a repeat of the same scripted, clinical explanation. I shared the screenshot and stood my ground on the contract terms. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted closure and a refund. By Sunday, the fallout was deafening. My phone was a frantic loop of missed calls from her family and text messages from her mother and sister, alternating between accusations of rash behavior and pleas for a calm conversation. Chloe finally called me, her voice a fragile performance of confusion. She tried to frame the leveling up post as a strategic marketing maneuver, something Jax had insisted on to generate engagement for his upcoming campaign. She claimed it was all just content, that the tagging was a misclick or a misunderstanding, and that staying at his compound was purely about productivity. I listened to the excuses, but I heard only the static of a lie. When I confronted her about the reality of our relationship versus her desire for digital clout, she crumbled into familiar patterns of manipulation. She didn't want to lose me. She just didn't want to stop the momentum of her new brand life. It was a terrifying realization. She viewed our entire history as a low engagement asset compared to the viral potential of her new connection. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't offer a rebuttal to her pathetic justifications. I simply told her that she had made her choice, and then I ended the call for good. The aftermath was a strange, hollowed-out version of my life. Walking through our apartment in Santa Monica felt like walking through a crime scene. Every piece of furniture, every piece of art, was a reminder of a future that had been incinerated by an influencer's ego. I began the process of ending the lease and offloading our shared belongings. It was liberating to watch the space empty. Each box packed was a piece of my autonomy reclaimed. My friends in the city were incredible, reminding me that the facade she had built wasn't something I could ever compete with. And more importantly, it wasn't something I should ever want to. The final stages of the cleanup were both clinical and cathartic. By the middle of the week, the financial damage had been mitigated more effectively than I had ever dared to hope. To my surprise, the Malibu venue's management reviewed the screenshot of the public upgrade post and waived the majority of the cancellation fees, citing a breach of fundamental good faith. The photographer, clearly having seen enough of this kind of drama in Hollywood, refunded the full deposit, remarking that he'd rather lose the booking than work with a client who prioritized viral stunts over genuine human connection. The other vendors followed suit, leaving me in a position of recovery rather than ruin. Chloe's family continued their campaign of emotional intervention, with her sister and father attempting to cast her actions as a mature professional judgment rather than a betrayal of our commitment. They pleaded with me to see it as a momentary lapse, a symptom of the high-pressure environment she worked in. But I was unmoved. I recognized that what they called a mistake was actually a clear, intentional revelation of her values. If she could so easily swap me out for a brand-aligned upgrade at the first opportunity, our foundation had never been made of stone. It had been built on the shifting, superficial sense of social validation. Breaking the lease on our Santa Monica apartment was the final structural seal on the decision. I found the subletter, packed my life into a series of boxes, and moved into a quieter space where the only digital presence that mattered was my own. I started seeing a therapist to untangle the remaining frustration, and the sessions were a revelation in themselves. She helped me see that my silence and immediate strategic action weren't cold, as Chloe had claimed, but rather the ultimate expression of self-respect. By refusing to engage in a back-and-forth battle for control, I had kept my integrity intact. Life in Los Angeles has a way of resetting itself quickly. 3 weeks after the story went live, the buzz surrounding Chloe's brand had likely shifted to some other trivial narrative. But for me, the lesson was permanent. I recently reactivated my dating profile, not with the intent of jumping back into a serious commitment, but as a symbolic gesture of readiness to move forward. I'm no longer the person who ignores red flags in the name of trust. I'm the person who recognizes when the building is compromised and has the discipline to walk away before it collapses. Looking back, the entire experience was a masterclass in separating optics from reality. Chloe had been living for the feedback loop of an algorithm, and in the end, she became a victim of the very medium she tried to manipulate. I am officially unbound. My future is a blank canvas, and for the first time in 2 years, the view from my window actually matches the life I'm living. There is a profound, quiet power in choosing dignity over a toxic narrative. I didn't just walk away from an engagement. I walked away from a performance that no longer served me. The production is over. The house lights are up. And for the first time, I'm finally at peace with the silence.